turn it over to Ms. Thompson if she could outline the procedure.
Thank you, Your Worship. There are microphones throughout the room. There are two floor mics, and when we get to that part, we're asking you to come up to the microphone, clearly state your name and address so that we can record it and everyone knows. And you do have up to 3 minutes. There is a timer so that we're giving opportunity to everybody who wishes to speak. If you are unable to stand, we do have portable microphones that runners will bring to you, but we do encourage everyone to use the floor stand mics. If there is a bit of a line, you can wait until the line decreases. And just as a reminder, the meeting will be sort of adjourning at 6:30 for a bit of a break. We will be resuming at 7 o'clock. You do not need to stay for the whole meeting if you do not wish. You do not need to speak at both sessions. Mr. Horn will be making the same presentation that he's about to make now this evening. Your Worship.
Thank you. I'd ask Mr. Horn to come forward and make a presentation. And I'd remind members of council that the microphones on the floor are live at all times. So if you have any sidebar conversations, I'd ask you to turn away from the microphone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can everybody hear me okay at the very back? Great, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, members of council, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rob Horn. It's my pleasure to provide you with this very brief introduction today. Many of you may have been here on September the 26th as well, and we thought it would be most effective to give you an overview. This will also be posted tomorrow morning on the website, so if you can't get all of the detail, you can certainly pick that up first thing in the morning on the web page. So a little bit of background. I appreciate this is text heavy. Starting in October of 2016, Stratford Council passed a resolution directing staff to meet with the festival to understand their redevelopment proposal and report back to council. There was considerable discussion that occurred, and of course the festival as well made efforts to secure funding from the provincial and federal governments and has been successful in doing so. On September 11, 2017, Council passed another resolution to initiate a public consultation process, and then from September the 21st to October the 10th, there was an open window leading to September 26th, where we had a public open house here in 2 sessions, very much a similar approach to what we're doing today to solicit feedback. On November the 30th of 2017, staff then issued a public report reporting back on the public meeting, and again, that can be found on the city's website. So more recently, on December the 11th of last year, Council passed 2 resolutions. One that was directing staff to initiate a notice of intent to consider the disposition of land at 48 Water Street to be surplus. And secondly, that notice of a public meeting be issued in a number of formats. I'll go over that on January 15th, which is, of course, today. So the property, the lands and buildings owned by the city of Stratford and currently leased to the Stratford Festival and used by many organizations, including the Stratford Lakeside Active Adults Association, Rotary, Stratford Lawn Bowling Club, the Kiwanis Club, and many, many other users that simply didn't have space to list. There's a map of the property, and again, this can be found on the city's website, just so you have a sense of the geography. So today we're here to consider the declaration of this property as surplus. I thought it would be helpful to add a slide that talked about what some of the public interests are, and I would emphasize that these are some of the public interests. There are the current users, of course, most of whom are community-based. There is the economic and the cultural importance of the Stratford Festival to the community. There is the existence of significant senior government funding that I mentioned at both the provincial and federal levels. There is the opportunity for community building through a new Tom Patterson Theatre and associated facilities. There's the importance of publicly accessible green space, its maintenance, and where possible, its enhancement. There is the issue of perpetual public parking in this area and opportunities to enhance. There is the fact that the building is aging, the current Tom Patterson facility is aging. And finally, there is the Grand Trunk Community Hub, which City Council has noted its interest in, and for which we continue to advocate to senior government levels to create, and for which both the University of the Waterloo and the YMCA of Perth Stratford have a very keen interest in partnering on. So again, apologies for the font here. I just wanted to make sure that when you pull this up tomorrow morning, you'll have a chronology that shows where we published. We tried to do as many forums and formats as we can. We also did another piece in the Beacon Herald on Saturday and a short reminder on social media this morning. So providing feedback. So the window for feedback opened on December the 20th. As Mayor Matheson noted, we've had a total of 28 submissions thus far. And again, we tried to make every opportunity available to the community to respond. So it was really up to you whether you would like to write a letter, speak to somebody in person, attend a meeting. Again, to provide that broad suite of opportunity for you. We do have comment cards available in the atrium as well, and I'll speak to that again in a minute. And just a reminder of the website and the email address that is currently live. So, very important point today is the final planned public meeting for Stratford City Council to listen to you. If you're expecting council to debate and deliberate tonight, that won't happen. This is all about the community speaking to council and for us as staff to have a better understanding of the issues and concerns. How will we receive your input? Just further to Ms. Thompson, our city clerk, you do have a maximum of 3 minutes. If you feel that you don't need that full 3 minutes and you can do it in, say, 1 minute and 10, that's just fine. But I do want to say, continue to be respectful, listen to others. I thought we heard a lot of input at the last session on September the 26th. I thought it was done very effectively. It gained us a lot of insight, and we had a lot of people able to stand up and provide their opinions. If your point's already been made, if you can simply add your support. And also, as I said, so there are written comment cards in the atrium. If you would rather provide written comment, you're welcome to do that. I would emphasize, and I did this the last time as well, written comments are as important as verbal or spoken comments. Both have equal importance. We will be documenting the comments here and, of course, gathering the information in the atrium. So, in terms of next steps, so the planned public consultation is scheduled to end tonight, midnight tonight. We do plan on keeping the site open overnight, and we'll wrap up the comments just to provide a little bit more opportunity for people. Stratford City Council will then review the feedback. They would need to hold a special meeting to formally consider whether or not to declare the property as surplus. If council decides to declare the property surplus, they would schedule a special meeting to formally confirm that it is deemed surplus and to determine the method of disposal. And finally, if the property is declared surplus, not only would the decision be made, but there are confirming bylaws to confirm the actions of council. So I just wanted to let you know, sort of, this is the consultation, and then there are 2 significant decision points that come after that. So again, no decisions will be made by council tonight. This is the final planned session, and the city, and at a staff level, we do anticipate this process to be concluded late this month or early in February. So, Your Worship, those are my comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Horn. Anyone wishing to make comments, if you could take to the microphones on the side, please. They're right there, right there. And again, if you could clearly state your name and address for the record.
Okay, Pat Hume, 76 Main Muse. The one comment I'd like to ask of the council is, you've declared this surplus, but you have not given us our reason why you've declared it surplus. And if you're listening from us, we would like to know from you what made you decide to call it surplus to start with.
So this meeting is actually to hear from the public before it is declared surplus. The land has not been declared surplus. I would say, and I won't speak for all of them, council, if they are going to consider anything to be surplus, so in advancing the theater's proposal, they are required to hold a public meeting, and before we go further, we wanted to have that public meeting now. Sir?
Ken Wood, 84 William. I've got 3 quick questions. I'd like to know that whether the application for grants from the provincial and federal government, was that a joint application by the city and the festival?
No.
Thank you. Second question is...
Ken, I'll just take this, I won't take up this off your time, but there's 2 different groups we have to apply to. The federal and provincial money the theater gets come from cultural infrastructure. The money the city would apply for infrastructure such as a community facility is a totally separate fund, and that's why the application can't be together.
Okay, so you're saying basically it becomes down to 2 applications, one for Community Hub, one for Festival.
That's correct.
Okay, but did the city participate in any way in the application for the festival grants from the province and federal?
Council did not. I did attend a meeting with the provincial government, and I was in Ottawa at a meeting with the federal government, and it was at the same time we were advancing. Mr. Horn and I were there for a meeting that was subsequent to the one the theater had to talk about our grant applications. I will note that the Community Infrastructure Fund has not been announced yet by the federal government or the provincial government, and that is why we have not applied as of yet.
Thank you very much, and by the way, you're doing the right thing being an ambassador. Second question is, do we have an estimate, if we declare that land surplus, what is the valuation of it? And perhaps you could tell me, if you haven't done the valuation, how you would go about doing that.
I will let Mr. Horn answer the process as it deals with the city's land disposal bylaw.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just to put in context, so this meeting is part of the process to consider this land surplus. If council deems the land is surplus, then we would seek an appraisal. We have consulted with the land valuator as well. That appraisal would then inform council's decision in accordance with their purchasing policy as to whether they would dispose of the property. At a staff level, I can tell you that the advice to council would be to seek at a minimum fair market value, and that the appraisal would ultimately be made available to the public, likely published on the website, because that's typically what we do.
Thank you very much. And just the very last question is if council could confirm for me that no one has made a decision as to whether it's better to sell the land or lease the land. I'm actually very much in favor of leasing it for a 50-year period at about $250,000 a year.
And to date, council has not had any vote with regard to selling or leasing. I will say that our legal counsel has raised the issue on both fronts, and I'm sure different members of council all have different opinions.
So open minds and semi-open minds. Thank you.
Dan Graber, 63 Water Street, Stratford. I have a question in regards to the leasing or selling. I'm in favor of selling with a condition. I just wondered if the lands were sold at 48 Water Street, is there a mechanism, or will there be a mechanism to return the land to the city of Stratford if the festival ceases? It was just yesterday that Sears Canada ended here in Stratford. It started here, it ended. Nothing lasts forever. That's my question. On the other hand, Mr. Ken Wood supported leasing the land. It's more of a statement. If you go to the leasing, please ensure that there's enough of the lease coming in that we can acquire the necessary funds for the community hub.
I will say, Dan, to answer your question, council, members of council have asked our legal counsel with regards to a codicil to the agreement that would allow the land to be transferred back to the city if they cease to exist as a non-profit theater.
Thank you.
Laverne Marshall, 74 DeMille Street, Stratford. My question is, how can you call this a surplus when it's used 7 days a week by different organizations, including the 900 SLA members? And if this is a surplus, then how do you propose to put these people other places in Stratford?
So I can provide a short answer, which is so back to my first slide and talking about what the public interest is, and back to the point that this public meeting is to consider declaration of surplus. That is one of the issues. It is certainly a community use on the property, not just SLA, but many other uses. And so the question does become, if not there, then where would people be accommodated? So in terms of SLA, the Agriplex has been identified as one option, and it would keep the group whole. And I'm just using SLA as an example to your point because, yes, it is a big and growing membership. I think the other question associated with that is, does this situation then create an opportunity to create the Grand Trunk Community Hub and thereby a more robust active senior center than is currently in existence?
This is true, but at the same time, I've been up to the Agriplex, and I cannot see how it's possible to put all of those groups in that area.
Yes, I'd be happy to chat with you. My Director of Community Services, Mr. David St. Louis, is here as well. I can assure you we've been doing a lot of detailed work and working with the SLA executive, attending SLA meetings, and also with the other users of the Agriplex, including the board of the Agriculture Society.
Sir?
Ron Dodson, 50 McCarthy Road East, Unit 2. I've been a citizen and a taxpayer here since 1976. That's 15,119 days, making me still a recent arrival. My input is based on two beliefs, actually three beliefs, that everyone wants the festival to succeed, and that everyone wants the city to succeed. And the third one is that those first two are complementary and intertwined. They're not oppositional. I'd urge Council to look at the idea of declaring the land surplus. And I would propose a simple Canadian compromise, that the city sells the footprint of the building to the Stratford Festival, and that the rest of the land is leased to the Stratford Festival. The compromise would give the city an immediate cash infusion to build the Grand Trunk Community Hub, which includes the SLAAA, and that it's based on fair market value, of course. The city then would also receive an ongoing, stable cash flow year by year from the Stratford Festival, which is manageable for it and beneficial to the citizens. Perhaps that cash flow is directed and dedicated to the operational costs of the hub, for example. To me, this compromise presents a win-win situation for the city and for the Stratford Festival. Lastly, some words of advice for the council members. Please, please, please do not get bogged down in deferment motions and attempts to get more information and so on, and other delays in voting as this issue goes forward. Make a decision. Make it on the best information available and the best interests of all citizens, but most of all, take a deep breath and decide.
Elaine Strawbridge, 38 Murray Hill Road in Stratford. I am quite concerned that the $40 million that's being provided by the provincial government and the federal government is going to have too much weight in the decision that's made here. And I'm worried that it's going to be a bad decision because of that. I think that there are other options. There's vacant property in Stratford. The fairgrounds has sat empty for quite a while now. We, of course, know about the Cooper site, and I think they would be better options than disrupting the number of groups that will be disrupted in order to do this. I'm a theater lover. I've gone to more than 130 plays here in Stratford. Some of the best have been at the Tom Patterson, and it's been good partially because of the way it's built. I would suggest that the current building be torn down if it is not good enough for the use that they need it for, and another building quite similar be built on the same footprint. I think you need to consider parking, which is a huge issue as someone who tries to park downtown regularly. And I think you need to consider the huge disruption that this is, and don't let that $40 million make the decision for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Pat Hume, 76 Million Views. I do have some comments as well to the council. I do believe that I can see that the Tom Patterson Theatre will be built because it needs to be done. However, I agree with the previous speaker about the footprint. We don't need to give all the parkland to the festival. I think that belongs to the city of Stratford, the people of Stratford, and I think we need to think about, we need funding forever. Think of the 407. The Ontario government gave up the 407, and now after, 12 years or more, they're now attaching themselves onto the extension of the 407 to get more money because they need revenue. We always need revenue. So by leasing the land, we will always have revenue. We sell it, sure you have $4 million, but that won't last until the end of 2019, 2020. Then we still need more money. Where are we going to get it? So I think we need to think about that. And I also agree with the fact that we can't shuffle everybody around the city to the agricultural center. I think the seniors really do like being down by the park. They like the Kiwanis Center. Everything I hear about, I'm not going to go to the Kiwanis event activities anymore because I have to now drive over here to the Rotary Center. I don't feel comfortable at night driving this far. And I'm not sure the hub is the actual good location for all the senior activities either, for my personal opinion on that one. So I think you need to think about leasing the land. We see the same thing with Festival Hydro. We had a consultation on that, and the people of Stratford said, don't sell it. You're probably glad now you didn't sell Festival Hydro to Hydro One. So the same thing happens to this property. We should keep it, we should use it, and then give a balance between the people and the Stratford Festival.
Anne Lake, 420 William Street, Stratford, and I've been a resident here for the last 10 years and in the area for much longer. I'm a long-time festival visitor and a community member too in this community. I just want to speak in favour of council doing something to help the theatre with their moving forward. I don't think everyone in this city appreciates how lucky we are to have the theatre. We have a world-class organisation, and that organisation is telling us that it needs to grow and it needs to change. I think the 40 million should take a big part of that decision. How often does a community our size get the opportunity to have 40 million in funding from government? So I would encourage the Stratford Council to either lease or sell the property, whichever it deems to be the right way to go, but to be supportive of your festival. I think that many people here don't appreciate what the festival brings to us in so many different ways. I think we're at a point now that we were in the 50s, and I think if we move forward with a vision, we will have this theatre around for many, many years, and our economic advantage of having that theatre will continue. So please, please, let's move on with this and continue to support our theatre. Thank you.
Joan Beauchart, 70 Dawson Street. Back in the 1920s, Mr. Orr fought valiantly to save the area along both sides of the river as parkland for the enjoyment of the residents of Stratford. This area was later designated as floodplain. Now some of the descendants, as members of the Stratford Festival Board, are trying to destroy his dream. The 2017 year-end review section of the Beacon Herald shows an artist's rendition of what the community hub built on the Cooper block could look like in as little as 10 to 20 years from now. Urban strategy speaker at the fall meeting held at the University of Waterloo stated that they hope to have shovels in the ground in 5 years. Mr. Horn stated at the last open meeting held here at this complex that the seniors would not be left at the Agriplex indefinitely. It's sure starting to look that way if this goes through. The renovations have already begun at the Agriplex, and permission and the sale or lease of the property has not been given for the destruction of the buildings in question. Some of our seniors, me included, will not live long enough to see our new digs uptown. You want seniors driving less, and then you want to put us in the busiest part of the city. We, the taxpayers, like to come out of the Kiwanis Centre to see our river and parkland, especially being as our taxes pay for the upkeep of this lovely land. Now we will have to keep paying, but mainly for the tourists to enjoy our park. Will the new use for the property meet with the city plan? Or does the city plan only apply to Walmart and not to the festival? And Walmart had to provide a lot more parking. Maybe the festival should cut back on the gardens and have more on-site parking. They want 600 seats and should provide at least 300 parking places on site. Most people attend the theater as a twosome, not 4 to a car. Let's not be using the surrounding streets and the Almond Arena for people attending the plays. No other businesses would get away with this type of parking plan. Where are the locals to park to attend Stratford Summer Music for the barge music? The mayor and city council should remember that the residents of the city, not the festival, pay your salaries. The festival doesn't even pay taxes. There will be at least 900 seniors watching to see who votes and which way they vote on this, as well as many other residents of the city. To quote a letter from a letter in the Beacon this past Thursday, does the mayor and city council of Stratford, who were duly elected by the citizens of this fair city, really believe that Stratfordites are so naive and stupid that they did not know the deal was already forged and completed before it was brought to public review? Hardly. The festival is so sure of getting their way, they even started a fundraising project this morning. I don't know why you even bothered to have all these consultations with the citizens when you really don't care what we think. And we know it was all a done deal about 2 years ago when the festival first asked about looking into the property, even though it's designated floodplain. Sell the property, it's gone forever. And who will get to buy it if the Tom Patterson Theatre goes belly up? The city will have very little control. Maybe there should be a referendum so the cities can have their say regarding their property. The Kiwanis and the Tom Patterson Theatre face River Drive. Why was most of the advertising about the meeting using 48 Water Street as the address? Kind of misleading to the residents. One last question. It was suggested to me that surplus land is to go to sale by auction. Is this not right?
I'll let Mr. Horn answer your question, then I'll answer it.
Yes, so the question on disposition of property. So first and foremost, provincial legislation requires municipalities to have a policy and an approach. City Council has one. That includes a public meeting. If there is disposition, it's up to Council to decide whether it would be through a request for proposals, whether it might be a sole source or a sole purchase or otherwise. So there is latitude built into Council's policy.
Okay, thank you.
And Joan, I appreciate your comments. We're just as concerned about many of the aspects, such as parking, as you are. We've talked about it. I can assure you that Council has not made a decision. We have discussed with our legal counsel various options that are before us, and we are seeking input to make a final decision.
Aren't you glad you don't live on Water Street where the parking's going to be all taken up and you'll be lucky to
Joan,
back out your driveway?
Joan, thank you. I'm not going to debate, so thank you. And the last thing I'll say is you can remind Council that we represent the 900 members of the Seniors Association. We also represent people that work at the theatre, that live in this community, that aren't involved in either association. And Council often has these problems and challenges where we have to take all the information in and make a decision. So I don't want members of the public to think that we sit up here choosing sides. I can tell you this has been agonizing for many of them, and it is a long process that many of us wish was over, but we have to work through a process. Councillor Henderson.
Hello, I'm Bonnie Henderson. I just wanted to clarify that one part you were talking about, Joan. My understanding is for every theatre seat, you have to have, there has to be, every fourth theatre seat there has to be a parking spot. So for 600 seats, you'd have to have a minimum of 150 parking spots. And the festival, at my understanding, the last that I saw has 155 parking spots. And I'm sure we want more, but just so you know that that's how it works for no matter where you have a parking lot in Stratford.
Okay. Sir?
Am I next?
You might have to remove that from the holster there. So.
There we go. Okay. I am Bernie Laws, and I live on William Street. My wife and I moved here 22 years ago. And we've supported the Festival Theatre ever since. But we've also been delighted to discover this welcoming, vibrant city. In a thriving community spirit, which in my opinion, no amount of money can compensate for its decline. So I say that if the Festival Theatre thinks it can use bully boy tactics to oust our senior citizens from their much-loved community center at 111 Lakeside Drive, marching them off to refugee camps on the outskirts of the city without some serious and far-reaching backlash, then they are forgetting that the world no longer is as tolerant of bullies. 100 years ago, the people of Stratford saved these valuable public lands from the railroad builders. Now a new generation of citizens must come forward, speak out, and save these critical lands from the clutches of these overreaching theater builders. I know many who feel that the design for the new Patterson Theatre is ill-conceived and its location wrongly chosen, and that the interests of those pursuing this venture do not coincide with the best interests of the people of this city. The public land occupied by the Squamish Centre is clearly not surplus to the people of Stratford. I suggest
that the city send this project back to the drawing board where the whole community can partner with the Festival Theatre in developing a cooperative space at a more appropriate location. I say it's time to bring down the curtain on the president shenanigans. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
You may or may not wish to respond at this time, but I still love the theater, but I do not support this project and in this location.
Thank you. Thank you for your input.
My name is Sam Moore. I live at 174 Neil Ave in Stratford. I am Vice President of the Lakeside Seniors Active Adult Association, and I have been involved with the theater, the city, and our association from day one to bring us to where we are today. There's been many a rumor around about how we were badgered and pushed and shoved and how badly we've been used. That, I can tell you, is not true. The theater and the city have bent over backwards to make the slaw move as painless as they can. We are so fortunate in the city of Stratford that we have a building like the Agroplex that we can move into. Where else, what other city could we ever have that? The festival has generously provided funding to make changes in the Agroplex to make our stay there comfortable. What more could we ask for? I fully support the development of the new Tom Patterson Theatre. I have seen the drawings, I have seen the landscaping, I have an idea how it's going to set in, and it's going to be absolutely gorgeous. And it's going to enhance our city parks in every possible way. And I urge the council to move quickly and decisively on this matter.
I'm Mindy Goff. I'm from Charles Street in Stratford.
You just need the number on Charles Street.
78.
Thank you.
Please don't show up at my house, any of you, unless you're nice. I would like to...
They haven't shown up at my house.
That's good. I would just like to reiterate what I've been saying vociferously on social media for many months, and that is that this project is a visionary project. It's something that will bring our city forward. It is, as the previous speaker mentioned, a stunning and beautiful building and design. I think if we look back to Tom Patterson himself and the people who have come before us in this community, they have been people who have a vision for the future. They have not been people who want to keep things as they are and never change. I have so much I could say about this, but it would be a very long, discussion. I just want to say, bottom line for me and for almost everyone in my particular circles would be, let's get on with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone further? Any other member of the public wishing to speak at this time?
Hi, Wendy McNaughton, 50 McCarthy Road East. I just wanted to point out that from my end, I'm very much in support of the Tom Patterson redevelopment as it's been proposed. And I wanted to point out that the seniors component of our population is growing. and that Kiwanis facility, although it's much loved right now, is too small. And the seniors are outgrowing it, and we have the opportunity with the Tom Patterson redevelopment to, once that's launched, to putting our minds to what would be a fabulous facility for the seniors, for the rest of the community of Stratford, in that community hub. That's it.
My name is Scott Wishart. I'm at 132 Britannia Street. I've proudly lived in this beautiful community for 37 years, and I hope never to have to leave it. My only concern is sometimes the level of dialogue in this wonderfully rich discussion that we've had over the few months has been a bit adversarial. And I just wanted to remind everybody on both sides of the situation that we have to look to a path forward after whatever decision is made, and we still have to live as a community. And we have to realize that it isn't a faceless, nameless festival. These are artists, craftspeople, and good people who give back to this community and have been doing so for years. The Anita Gaffneys, the Anthony Chimolinos are not the festival with no heart. And I just want everybody to remember that when this decision does lead to something in the future, that let's keep the dialogue going and let's not alienate each other from each other, because we're all stronger together. And that's all I want to say.
Laverne Marshall, 74 DeMille Street. My son worked at the festival. I'm all for the festival. I think it is a beautiful building, but I have to say that this location I do not believe is good. I believe that the people that are going to suffer the most are the people who own homes on Water and Coburg and the adjoining streets, because right now you have a lot of people from the arena, younger families, that are parking in the Kiwanis Center. When this becomes paid parking, those younger families aren't going to park there. They're able to walk. They're going to park on these streets. So the people that had the houses there, they had festival people parking in front of their places twice a day. Now they're going to have them from 6 o'clock in the morning until midnight. And can you imagine the sounds? Because as they discuss the games and the sounds of those bags being dragged up the sidewalk, I feel sorry for those people, but I don't understand why they're not protesting.
Thank you, Laverne. Just so you know, the public parking has been an aspect that council has been looking at with regard to the public having access free for arena usage during the winter months. And that is something very clearly, there was a member of council that brought that forward. So I do want you to know it is on our radar with regard to that.
Hi, my name is David Prosser. I live at 50 Centre Street. Now, I work at the festival, so I have a vested interest. However, I am just a couple of months shy of officially being a senior myself, and I'm not going to work at the festival forever. I do rather look forward to that point in my life where I continue to live in Stratford, take pride in the fact that it has a stunning facility, an incredibly rich cultural life, something that is going to make my life as a senior have a dimension that it would not have if I did not live in a town like this, with this kind of theatre and with the opportunities that it brings. So I'm wholeheartedly in favour of the project, but not just because I work at the festival, but because I think I'm incredibly privileged to live in a place like Stratford, and I want to feel when I am 20 years from now, even older than I am now, that we made the right choice back in 2018. 18. Thanks so much.
Any other member of the public at this time? Yes. Would you like a microphone brought to you? Right. You can stay there. Somebody will come around.
In 1953, I attended
Excuse me?
a show
Could you
in
just...
a tent of the festival. Little did I think that now that I'm 86, that same festival is going to take me out of my its home on the Kiwanis Center. Pardon me for being so emotional about this. Excuse me, I forgot. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. Take your time. Can we just have your name and address for the record?
No, I do have one other notice.
Can you also give us your name and address for the record?
I'm June Lioness. I'm at 148 Glastonbury Crescent.
Thank you, Miss Linus.
I was born at 386 Albert Street, or Brunswick Street, at 3 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon.
I was born...
Tell me I don't know what I'm talking about.
Stratford General Hospital is where I was born.
Personally, my husband and I worked hard. We have bought our own home. The only thing I can really recall that the festival did for me was when the cannon went at 8 o'clock and my children came home to their own yards. Our taxes have never gone down. I don't have any personal idea that the festival has ever done anything for me other than that one thing. And I know that most of the seniors that are down at the senior place now will not be alive when any hub is done in the city of Stratford.
Thank you.
I'm Dorothy Vennisbrook, 202 Caledonia Street. I'm grateful to be able to speak on this topic. I must say I've been afraid ever since I heard about it. I'm afraid to lose the washroom that I use when I walk around the river. I have felt sadness, anger, and frustration, and I'm sorry if I've offended anyone in my overzealousness to find answers. I want a chance to make a positive difference in our town, just like everybody else in this room that shares that need to make a positive difference. I'm a 30-year resident of the town, a 6-month member of SLA. I have a couple of notes, but one question I have, is this a new problem? Have we ever been asked has anyone ever asked to buy the land by the river? And if so, how did we solve the problem? Plebiscite. Is that a possibility? I just wonder if this fits with our whole vision, our recreation master plan. Do we have all the data we need? Our largest population right now is from 55 to 60 and then 60 to 65. I'm just worried that those people that have not yet experienced the wonderful things of SLA will never know what it's like to go to the Kiwanis Center. I was really confused when some people at SLA said we have to keep everything together. I wondered why. But there's something about that hallway where you meet other people. You meet the woodworkers of the lapidary. SLA is more than the sum of its parts. Are there costs that we haven't even considered? The environmental costs. We're going to tear up a parking lot to put in gardens and then make another parking lot? Or are there health costs? To our, because we won't be as a walkable city. There's also the issue I know we can't have a solution until we have a better connection. So please, this is my only chance to say that if you want a free night, come to the City Hall. You have a warm place to go on a Monday night, and you can be you can partake in City Hall meetings. If you have 50 cents, you can come to SLA and you can play euchre on a Saturday night. And if you have a bit more money, please come and enjoy the theater. I just want to, anyway, so there's a woman who would want to read this, and she's not here tonight. She's in Costa Rica. But in the end, this is about, if you've never read this book, A Star Dance, the story of how Stratford started the Stratford Festival. But in the end, it really comes down to wonder. The wonder simply that, and without minimizing the extraordinary valuable contribution of all the outsiders, you mean like Guthrie and Guinness, they were perhaps, think of it as a great feast. They were perhaps the roast beef. But it was the people of Stratford who were the vegetables, the potatoes, the gravy, the pudding, the horseradish, the wine, the coffee, the brandy, the pie, the china, the crystal, the cutlery, the tablecloth, the napkins, the table, the chairs, the oven. Well, you get the idea. Anyway, I know we need to work together. We're all going to be here no matter what happens. So please consider the seniors and everyone else. Thanks.
Thank you.
Evelyn, is that okay? Evelyn Adams, 11 Coburg Street. My husband and I do not use the Kiwanis Center. We do drive out here to the Agriplex. From our point of view, we think it's a great idea for the Festival Theatre to be able to do something with the Tom Patterson Theatre, but we do not agree with displacing the seniors, regardless of the fact that we don't use the seniors complex at the Kiwanis Center. And that's basically my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public?
My name's Kathy Hill. I live at 25 Water Street. We have a bed and breakfast there. I just want to say my husband and I are in support of the festival changing the Tom Patterson. It looks like an awesome place. We do have our concerns, parking and lighting and things like that, but it's our business. And if we didn't have the festival, we wouldn't have a business. And there's a lot of other B&Bs and other places that think the same. And restaurants, whatever businesses are in town, they need the festival. And yes, we feel for the seniors. My own opinion is, if you're a group as strong as the seniors, you're going to be a group no matter where you are. It's not the building, it's the people. So if you're up here, you're still going to be a group, and you're still going to be great. And Stratford will support you. But as far as the festival and the Tom Patterson, I think it's an awesome idea, and I think we should all go get going on it. Quit dicking around. Excuse me.
Is that a technical term? All right. Anyone else? Yes.
Dan Graver, again from 63 Water Street. And it was mentioned earlier about people from Water Street, and I know Kathy had just, my neighbor, had just mentioned something. But I wanted to state, if this decision is made by council in the affirmative of the festival proceeding with the proposal, what is the process, or what will be the process for the neighborhood to see what it looks like? I've seen the beautiful vistas and views from William Street. I've seen the 3D modeling. I've seen the flyby in front of Lakeside Drive to look at it. Myself and others on Water Street, what we've received is a cross-section of the building, and that's all we really know. An aerial view, a cross-section, but we don't actually know what it's going to look like on Water Street. And I'm sure if the decision is in the affirmative, that's what we're going to be looking forward.
Yes, so I won't go over the process I described, which was the early stages to what you're alluding to. I think there's two elements, and one is, and I would be my first and foremost, is the festival has been fairly open since June or July to share its detailed design. I can tell you that with any development of this size, and this is no exception, it's continual refinement, because it is a huge facility and it has to fit and it has to be value engineered. So I would say the festival is one part. The second part, though, is that the city would have to approve a site plan, and that is a process that is required under provincial legislation, so there's no sort of latitude, and they would have to go through that process as well. And that's where things like grading, lighting, drainage, landscaping, parking, and all the site details are confirmed.
Okay, thank you. And I wanted to also confirm the festival has been very open with a couple of different neighborhood meetings and a personal meeting, although there are some things that are missing out of it, and you're assuring me that that'll be captured. Thank you.
That is a public process, Dan.
Thank you.
And as for the people that talk about floodplain, the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority does have review and approval in this process as well. So any concerns regarding floodplain have to be answered and approved by the Upper Thames. Sure. That's right, he'll bring the mic up to you.
I just needed to add one more thing, believe it or not. I'm the 86-year-old oldest member of the active adults there, and we plan the card parties and other events that go on there. We also have children coming from Romeo School that love to be with us, funeral seniors. They can't come to the Ag Center because they don't have it in their budget for buses. And another thing, the kitchen is on the second floor. If the card parties are on the main floor, I have already stated to our rep from the City Health that I will not truck food up and down in an elevator for a volunteer job that I do from the bottom of my heart. So there's my saying. If you're going to have things on the second floor, you're going to have to exclude myself, anybody with a walker, with any mobility issues, because in case of a fire, it'd be a fire trap up there for them.
Annette McDonald from 81 William Street. I'm confused because I was at the very first meeting that we had, and I thought that Anita Gaffney was talking about the possibility of an extension of that theater for the seniors that would actually be larger than what they have now, and I don't know where that has evolved.
Annette, the design that came with that offer would cost roughly $7 to $8 million to build that section that would be expected the city to pay, and all the spot where that building would go would take away further parking on the site, and we clearly decided that a 3-story seniors complex with less parking jammed onto a site was not something we were willing to entertain.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's Ken Wood again, 84 William. I just want to kind of conclude this with drawing each and every councillor's attention to the fact that the decision you're making is a big one. It's going to affect future generations. And I honestly, sincerely pray for you to make the right decision. I would not want to be in your shoes right now because it has been a divisive issue for the city for a lot of reasons. But we've come to the crunch, and as somebody used the technical term, let's not dick around. let's get a solution. So look deep in your hearts, look deep in your brain, use every skill and resource each of you has to think about what is this going to look like in 40, 50, 60 years, and are people going to be thanking you or taking your picture away or something? Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Eleanor?
My name is Eleanor Kane at 254 Cambria Street here in Stratford. I've lived in Stratford for 40 years. I came to Stratford because of the Stratford Festival. As a then resident of Montreal, I used to travel by train to Toronto, rent a car, come to Stratford to see these wonderful plays. And that was at the base of the decision to leave my life in Montreal and to live in Stratford. I've run a couple of businesses here in the city very successfully. I feel very much a part of the community, and not just in my business life, but in my social life and my recreational life. I love the city very much, and I love the Stratford Festival. I had the good fortune of serving on the board of directors of the festival for 6 years, and I learned more and more about how this wonderful operation works, and met, of course, many people involved with the theatre. I think as my time living in Stratford has evolved, I've also had the opportunity to learn more and gain deep respect for the people that have made Stratford what it is. And those people include, of course, Mr. Tom Patterson, but also a visionary person by the name of R. Thomas Orr, who created the park system in our city. He was the one that led the campaign against the railroad putting its new rail bed down in the area that is now the river and the lake. A true visionary. And the city proudly carries that vision forward through its very robust park system. And I commend them for that. I really appreciate the proposal that Ron Dodson made tonight about perhaps splitting the land in the sense that the land that is just west of Tom Patterson that heads over to Waterloo Street, that the city perhaps consider retaining that on a lease basis. The city has a proud tradition of parks. Not only does the city have it, but individual residents in our community are exceptional in the way that they take care of their properties. Our community gardens, our city gardens are valued very highly, not just by the people that own the properties, but if you're a visitor walking up and down the streets in Stratford, you come across these amazing gardens that people invest in and love. And so, to me, that this idea that perhaps the city could lease that portion of the land and keep ownership of it, to me it would be a tribute back to our Thomas Orr, that it is public land that was very carefully structured and built. So I would hope the city might take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor.
My name is Kelly Walker, 301 Water Street, and I want to say something to the old folks. I'm 76, so I'm an old folk. I think one of the most exciting things that I saw happen in this city recently, and I'm not part of this community, the United Church community, but I really want to commend the United Church people from St. John's and Central. I don't know what went on to allow them to do what they did in two communities becoming one. But I really want to commend those old people, and only old people are in the churches for the most part. I want to commend the old people for having had the courage and the open spirit and also the dream of a future to have created the new Avondale United Church. It has become something bigger than just a church. It's become a community center. It's become the best concert venue in the city, other than Factory 163. They put in comfortable chairs. They've air-conditioned it. They've made it affordable. They've made it accessible to all kinds of people. And I think that old people can be courageous and can move. It's not downtown. It's way out in the suburbs, at least from a guy who lives across from the theater. And I think that old people can make incredible changes and can go lots of places. I know lots of old people who go to Kitchener. And I know old people who even go to London, to Costco, and now that we have Walmart that I'd never go to, but some people even go there, and it's way out in the suburbs. So good for you, and don't get old and stiff and starchy, and don't become dried up old prunes, but become exciting, vibrant people who make sure that there is a wonderful future here. Thank you.
Nancy Shaw, 91 Cedar Brae Drive here in Stratford. I have to say I've followed the process from a distance, reading in the newspaper, watching on the news. When I tell people I come from Stratford, the two things I always mention is our beautiful park system and the Festival Theatre. Like Scott Wishart, my concern has been the divisiveness of this issue. We need action on this, but it needs to be action that everyone can embrace and support in a very positive manner. When I saw the news today and I heard Anthony Similino saying this project will go ahead, people were dissenters with the theatre many years ago, and we are going forward. It adds to the confusion that I have as a citizen in Stratford as to what has gone on behind closed doors as far as discussions and where we are going with this project. The parklands are important to us. The festival is important to us. Do we want them to have a state-of-the-art building that people are interested in coming to fill the seats? Yes. We have theater seats that are empty for the most part in the theaters we have right now. So there is that concern about the building. I think Mr. Dodson's suggestions as far as leasing and the property footprint is important. I do feel that that footprint could be elsewhere in the city because access to the downtown core is important to the seniors. I am a senior. I like to think of myself as not too cruddy and creaky yet. But I think we can't denigrate people because of their age and their ideas and their emotion and their care for this city. I think everyone in attendance here loves Stratford. They want to see the best for Stratford. But let's do it in a way that we take all the important aspects of the decisions that we make into consideration. Thank you, council members and mayor, for your time and the opportunity to speak on this issue.
Thank you. I would just say in a perfect world, when the festival approached the city and we started looking at grants for a community hub or community facility, if the two senior levels of government had married up the grant process for arts and culture with community infrastructure, it would have been a lot easier. And in this case, they didn't. So as much as we've been to Ottawa and Toronto to state a case for community infrastructure like many other cities, we still wait for that program to be announced. So I know it seems a cart before the horse, I can tell you we have logged lots of time on phones and in front of cabinet ministers advocating for grant for community facilities. And unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see it probably before the provincial election, unfortunately, which then puts us back. So I want people to understand the timing of this is somewhat out of our hands, because if we decide to advance without the senior levels of government, they don't do retroactive grants. And the same thing happened to us when we built this complex in 2005. We received a $3 million grant from the province. There was nothing available from the federal government. A short 13 months later, the township of Wilmot got 3 times the grant we got. They got $9 million to build that complex that's now on the highway. And it's because we decided to go ahead because we needed a facility, and we weren't going to wait because they hadn't given us any signal. So I want you to know, once bitten, twice shy. We might not be in a big rush till we find out what's available to us. It's a downer, but it's the truth. Any other members of the public at this time?
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Welsh. I'm at 118 Norman Street, which, as I understand it, is 2 houses away from where Tom Patterson used to live. I have 3 quick comments. First, I'm a senior. I'm a member of the Lakeside Active Adults Association, and I can say that I'm supportive of what the festival is proposing to do with renewing and renovating the Tom Patterson Theatre. So those who suggest that there's a collective opinion with respect to seniors or even members of the SLAW, I think is mistaken. So those who want to speak on behalf of seniors as a collective shouldn't do so without some sort of touching base with members of that community individually. Second, I'm a little concerned with the notion of declaring the site surplus. Part of the issue, of course, is the meaning of the word. I think it's the discussion up to now has basically opened the door to all sorts of questions from all points in the compass as to why and for what purpose and what end. I think the other shoe or penny to drop, so to speak, is what would the city do, what would the community do with the funds if it were disposed and declared surplus? We don't have much of a sense of that. We know there are plans afoot for the community hub, and supposedly or presumably a portion of this money might go toward that. But without council identifying that as it's part of its game plan, so to speak, the question then becomes, great, we dispose of this asset, what happens to the money? Surely there's some intention in your minds as to how to use that money and make sure it's not frittered away for reducing mill rates or tax rates or whatever. If I dispose of my RRSP, I've got to have a good idea as to what I'm going to use the money for. I think it would be a clear positive if the city council were be able to, or the clerk would identify use of the funds for a particular purpose, perhaps tied if the site were sold to the festival, tied to make sure it wasn't sort of put away somewhere or wasted, so to speak. I'm sorry that we don't have that part of the equation, but let me repeat again that I'm supportive of what the festival has, because, and that leads me to my third point, it's clear that the festival has got its mind and its eye on the horizon, where the competition is coming from. What does it have to do in order to remain a successful and thriving entity for this community and for Canada, frankly? One of our speakers earlier in the day mentioned the demise of Sears, which, like the festival, opened 65 years ago here in Stratford. And that operation has gone down the tubes because the board of directors, and I might suggest that you as council members of the city of Stratford are essentially the board of directors for this community. The Sears board paid no attention to its competition, was content with just sitting on its laurels and watching the time go by, looking intently at its rearview mirror. And what happened to Sears, I fear, is what might happen to us if this community does not recognize that unless we keep on investing in what we have going for us, we're not going to keep it. And I would ask you, in particular, members of the council, to bear that in mind as you make this decision. Yes, there are all sorts of grounds to wring your hands and to worry about this, that, or the other thing, to ask that every question be answered. I don't think that's realistic. You've got to show the vision and make a commitment to the future of this community, and the Stratford Festival is going to be key to that. Thank you.
So, through you, Your Worship, if I could. So just three points relative to the comments made. One, the language of surplus declaration comes from provincial legislation. It's a little outdated, it's a little cumbersome, it doesn't reflect the range of opportunities that exist today, I would agree. Secondly, in terms of whether any proceeds could be apportioned, if you do have a look at the staff report on the website, there is a staff recommendation. I mean, that was done late last year, but I'd be remiss as a city manager if I didn't point out debt retirement as an option to council. But I also am very much in support of starting to raise funds and starting to plan for the community hub. And as I said, the University of Waterloo and the YMCA are both very, very serious and very earnest in their desire to be part of that. And they could be very significant partners to us. The third thing I'd mention as well is we talk a lot about exclusivity, and I hear a lot about parking and about green space, and great points this evening as well. The one thing I think we have to bear in mind is the notion of shared, or the notion of ongoing public access and use. And I think that's part of the conversation that we might want to push on a little bit. So I hope those comments are helpful.
Any other member of the public?
Hi, I'm Ellen Becker, 300 Coburg Street in Stratford. I am a senior citizen, and I am willing to go along with the SLAW Vice President if he says that they're on board with the Tom Patterson going ahead. So am I. Living on Coburg Street, we do have a lot of people who park in front of our house. When that happens, I always think that's a good sign for the city, because it means we have people who are here, who are spending money, providing jobs at our restaurants and our shops, as well as at the theater. I think this is very important for the city that the theater go ahead, and I'd like to see council give the deconstruction and reconstruction of the Tom Patterson a go-ahead before perhaps making a decision about whether to lease the land or to sell it. We're in danger, I think, of losing $5 million from the province if work is not started soon. So I'd just like to see council make their decision soon. Thank you.
I will say that, well, the province says you have to have $5 million spent by March 31st. Both the theater and myself have talked to the ministers involved, and I can't imagine 4 months before provincial election anyone clawing back a grant if they don't spend the full $4 or $5 million. That being said, it is our intent to make a decision in the not too distant future, because death by time is hard on all of us. And but I don't want us to make a decision just based on trying to meet an artificial deadline without having our legal agreements in place. And I think that's incumbent as the council of the city, and that's the best business practice, that no person would ever start into a project like this without having all their legal agreements in place. Anyone else? Anyone else? Well, seeing Seeing no one else is at the microphone, I'll just ask another time. Is there anyone else wishing to address the meeting? If not, comments received will be included in the public meeting minutes and provided to City Council and the public. A special council meeting has been scheduled for this Wednesday, and we will be considering the comments made at this meeting at that time. Details will be posted to the City of Stratford website tomorrow. They will be posted to social media. They will be distributed to both CJCS, the FM station, and the Stratford Beacon Herald for publication. If anyone has any further comments, there are forms in the atrium at the front that you could fill out. Please leave for us. As I said prior to the meeting, we had 28 submissions. We received another 26 individuals making comments this afternoon. We expect more again this evening. And Council will have all the minutes in place so we can review all the comments together. And I want to thank everyone for coming out this afternoon. I can say that you have been extremely respectful in your comments and thoughts, and I think it bodes well for, I think, a healthy debate in our community, but most importantly, a respectful one. So I thank you for doing so. And with that, I will take a motion that we adjourn this public meeting till 7 p.m. to continue with the evening comments. Moved by Councillor Brown and Councillor Henderson. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much.